Today we're going to tell you a story that, well, it seems almost impossible in our modern world. It's a chilling mystery, one that's baffled investigators and really captivated anyone drawn to the unexplained. It's the story of Brian Shaffer, a young man who simply vanished, leaving behind only questions and this profound sense of unease. Brian was, a promising second-year medical student, Ohio State University. He'd already earned his microbiology degree back in 2003, was doing really well in med school, bright future, definitely. And he was deeply in love with his girlfriend, Alexis. They were actually planning a spring break trip, Miami, Florida. Friends even thought, maybe a proposal was coming on that trip. But just 3 weeks before this really begins, back in March 2006, Brian's mother tragically died of cancer. Friends said it hit him hard, understandably, even though he seemed to be coping on the surface. Then, April 1st, 2006, Brian Shaffer disappeared completely, seemingly into thin air, right out of a bar. And his vanishing wasn't just unusual, it was totally out of character for him. This guy was dedicated, to his studies, his family. So we're going to try and piece together the strange events of that night and, well, the baffling lack of answers that have haunted this case for years.
Yeah, and what's particularly unsettling about Brian's case, I think, is just how rare this kind of disappearance is. So sudden, completely untraceable, especially now, when you have someone with a stable life, clear plans for the future, and they just cease to exist. It's more than just a mystery. It kind of challenges our whole sense of security, the limits of modern investigation.
Okay, so let's go back. The evening of March 31st, 2006. It started out like a lot of spring break celebrations, really. Brian decided to go bar hopping with his friend, William Florence. Later on, William's friend, Meredith Reed, she joined them. Their main spot for the night was this popular place, the Ugly Tuna Saloon. It was in the South Campus Gateway area in Columbus. Right, and this is where the story gets, well, truly perplexing. The Ugly Tuna Saloon, it had a security camera positioned near the entrance, and this camera, it recorded Brian talking to two women outside at about 1:50 a.m. That's April 1st now. Crucially, it shows him re-entering the bar. You see him walk back in. But here's the detail, the one that just confounds everyone. That same security camera, the one covering the only public entrance and exit, he never showed Brian leaving. Not at any point. He goes in, he doesn't come out on that tape. William Clements, his friend, he told police he saw Brian after he came back inside, but then somehow he lost track of him. And this was in just like the 15 minutes before the bar was supposed to close. William and Meredith, they said they looked around the bar, called Brian's name, checked the men's room, couldn't find him, his phone wasn't answering. So they made an assumption that he'd maybe just left without them, walked home. But that assumption, and it turned out to be devastatingly wrong. Brian Shaffer hasn't been seen or heard from since that moment. None of his stuff disappeared with him. His bank accounts, zero activity. It's like he just evaporated.
And that specific detail, him going in but not coming out on camera, it immediately flags this case, right? Investigators sometimes call it a locked room mystery almost. It's an instant red flag. It forces you to kind of discount the simple explanations, like someone just wandering off, almost immediately. Instead, it pushes you towards, well, much darker scenarios. Something happening inside the bar, or maybe a very deliberate hidden removal.
The search kicked off pretty fast once his family filed a missing person report. That was April 3rd, 2006. He'd missed his flight to Miami, the trip where he might have proposed. And that's when his family just knew something was terribly wrong. So the investigation, the search, it started right away. Investigators found Brian's car parked right at his apartment, keys inside, all his belongings untouched. It was just like a life suddenly frozen, which only deepened the mystery, really, didn't offer any quick clues. So the police, their initial efforts really zeroed in on the Ugly Tuna Saloon itself. They interviewed the employees, they talked to those two women Brian was seen chatting with on the camera footage, but nobody had any useful information. Nothing helpful came out of it. Even stranger, maybe, the police never found any blood. No evidence inside the bar at all to suggest foul play happened right there. Now, Columbus, Ohio, it's known for having a lot of security cameras, a really extensive network. So police expanded the search outwards. They meticulously checked footage from other nearby bars, businesses along the route Brian probably would have taken home. Still nothing. No trace of him anywhere on those cameras either. Investigators did consider maybe he tried to evade the cameras intentionally, changed clothes, put on a hat, kept his head down, something like that. But as the sources we looked at point out, that just felt really out of character for Brian. I mean, he was this promising med student planning a proposal, not someone likely leading some secret life or planning a disappearance.
That's a really critical point in any investigation like this. You have to explore every possibility, sure. But a person's established character, their life plans, those are strong indicators. For Brian, who had so much going for him, no obvious reason to just vanish. These sort of evasion theories, they quickly start to feel less plausible. And you also have to think about the logistics, right? Even if someone was determined, avoiding all those cameras in a busy area, It's hard to imagine doing that without leaving some kind of trace, some anomaly being recorded somewhere.
Yeah, those camera evasion theories, they didn't really hold much water. But investigators, they had to look at everything, every angle, which led them to the building itself. Like, were there other ways out? And there was a service door, not usually for the public. It led out towards a construction site behind the building. Police thought it would have been hard to navigate, especially in the dark. Rough terrain. They brought in canine units, dogs went through that construction area. But they didn't get a strong enough scent, not enough to confirm Brian definitely left that way. So the search just kept widening, dramatically. Out from the bar to nearby streets, dumpsters, they checked bodies of water, talked to everyone they could find locally. They even got the city to let them search the sewers. For miles. In every direction from the bar.
And if you think about that, the sheer scale of that initial search, I mean, the FBI got involved, right? All those camera reviews, canines, even the sewers, and still finding absolutely nothing. No trace at all. It just underscores how uniquely baffling this case really is. It defies what you'd normally expect from an investigation. But, for you listening, it also brings up a kind of uncomfortable question, maybe. Could a search that massive, just by its sheer scale, sometimes miss a tiny critical detail, get overwhelmed?
So with this huge search turning up absolutely nothing, suspicion, well, it naturally started to shift towards those closest to Brian that night. William Florence's behavior, his friend's behavior, it quickly became a major point of focus. For investigators, for the public too. He initially cooperated, but then he made a lawyer, refused a polygraph test, stopped talking to police altogether, saying he had, and this is a quote, nothing new to tell, and that he considered the matter closed.
Matter closed.
Oh.
That's odd.
Exactly. Investigators found that statement really unsettling, especially given his friend had just vanished.
Okay, so what were the initial theories? Well, because his mother had died recently, police did wonder initially, could he have just run away to grieve? Maybe planning to come back. But as time went on and his disappearance seemed permanent with no good reason for him to ditch his whole life, that theory got dismissed pretty quickly. Then there was the whole smiley face murder theory. You might have heard of it. It's this online conspiracy theory, basically. Suggests a group or groups of serial killers target young men, often near water, maybe drown them, and leave smiley face graffiti nearby.
Right. It pops up in discussions about various missing persons cases involving young men.
Yeah, and it gained some traction online with Brian's case. But Columbus police, they firmly rejected any link, said there was no evidence of that pattern. And importantly, if Brian was a victim of that, he'd be the only alleged victim who was never, ever found. The smiley face murder theory is kind of a fascinating example of how public speculation can sometimes really race ahead of the actual evidence. And it's important for investigators to address those theories, not just to knock down rumors, but to show they're following credible leads. In Brian's case, like you said, no body, none of the supposed hallmarks of that theory. It just wasn't a viable path for law enforcement.
Then there's the idea that maybe William, or maybe even Meredith, helped Brian disappear voluntarily. But investigators hit a major wall there. The motive. Why? Why would Brian Shaffer, this dedicated med student who'd worked so hard, just throw everything away, his family, his girlfriend, his whole future career, just to vanish, especially with a friend's help? The evidence for that kind of dramatic, planned abandonment of his entire life, it just isn't there.
And that's always the fundamental challenge, isn't it? With any theory about someone choosing to disappear, the why, yes, the grief over his mother was real, undeniable. But his whole life trajectory was pointing forwards, not towards escape. For investigators, when there's no clear motive for such a radical life change, it really weighs against that possibility. It pushes the focus back towards external factors. Foul play becomes more likely.
This case is also just riddled with these weird, baffling moments, red herrings that just make things more confusing. Like 6 months after he vanished, his girlfriend, Alexis, she called his cell phone, just on the off chance maybe, and it actually rang 3 times before going to voicemail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. His cell provider looked into it, said the call pinged off a tower like 40 miles away. They ultimately called it a probable crossed-wire glitch.
Yeah, a crossed-wire glitch. In this mobile context, it's not like the old landline thing. It's usually some kind of rare temporary network fluke, like a signal gets misrouted briefly, or a tower logs an old connection by mistake, makes it look like a phone is active or somewhere it isn't. It's incredibly upsetting for the family. It gives this awful false hope for a second, but usually it doesn't mean the phone was actually turned on or used.
And then there was another really cruel incident. In September 2008, Brian's father, Randy Shaffer, he tragically passed away. And someone went onto an online condolence book for Randy and left a signature. It read, "To Dad, love Brian," and it was marked as being from the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oh, it's horrible.
Terrible, right. Suggested maybe he had run away, but police tracked it. It came from a public computer just in Franklin County, Ohio, right near Columbus, confirmed to be nothing but a sick, cruel hoax.
It's just fascinating, in a grim way, how these hoaxes and these, like, phantom pings, they seem like they might offer hope or a lead, but so often they just add to the family's pain, and they can genuinely complicate the investigation too, right? Pulling resources away from leads that might actually be real is a harsh side of these high-profile cases. Some people will prey on that vulnerability.
So after all of this, all the searching, the theories, the hoaxes, we're back to the central question, the one that just hangs over everything. How did Brian Shaffer get out of that bar without being seen on that camera? We've gone over the footage, the layout, the massive search, but there are still these, unverified possibilities floating around. Could there have been a genuine blind spot? One tiny angle the camera just didn't cover, or maybe something related to the construction. A temporary freight elevator, maybe, that wasn't under surveillance, even a hidden window. The building was under construction, so maybe that created an opportunity somehow. Then, of course, there's a really grim possibility. Foul play. Did he see something inside the bar he shouldn't have? Was he targeted for some reason? Or even if he did somehow get out unseen, maybe something happened on the way home. He walks a few blocks, maybe a bit drunk. It was known as a higher crime area. Could he have been a victim of random street crime? But the big counterargument there is still the scale of the search. The FBI was involved. They searched so thoroughly, it seems, as the source put it, unlikely that they would have avoided detection if he'd been harmed in or very near the bar or just on his way home. The body would likely have been found, which leads to maybe the most chilling possibility. One discussed in some of the material we read, someone put it very snarkily. Honestly, I don't think he left the bar alive.
The idea being something happened inside the Ugly Tuna Saloon. He was killed maybe or badly injured, and then his body was secretly removed, hidden, snuck out somehow. One source even grimly speculated about, the old roll your buddy in the carpet thing. Just awful to think about. And the time that's passed, over 12 years when that source was recorded, even longer now. I mean, if someone knows something, they're keeping that secret very well hidden. And the stark fact remains. To this day, 0 confirmed sightings of Brian Shaffer, the Ugly Tuna Saloon itself. He closed down for good in May 2008, adding this weird layer of finality to the place where the mystery began.
It really leaves you with this profound question, doesn't it? Especially for you listening right now. In our world, with cameras everywhere, CCTV on every corner, it feels like, advanced forensics. How is it actually possible for a person to just vanish from a public place, leaving no body, no real evidence, no logical explanation behind? What does that tell us? About the limits of secrecy, maybe? Or perhaps the limits of our own ability to truly understand every dark possibility? The disappearance of Brian Shaffer is it's a truly haunting story. A young man, full of promise, walks into a bar and just never walks out. It's a mystery that still defies logic, leaves us with so many more questions than answers. We really hope this deep dive into Brian Shaffer's case is getting you a lot to think about. What stands out most to you in this story? Is it that bizarre camera footage, William's refusal to talk more? Or just the sheer seeming impossibility of it all? If you find yourself captivated by these kinds of unexplained mysteries, these chilling true crime stories, please be sure to hit that like button, share this deep dive with someone else who loves a good enigma, and definitely subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs, for more unsettling tales. Thank you so much for listening.